Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Three tails, Old Yin. Three tails, Old Yin. Got a slanty one. Two tails, one head, Yang Yang. Three tails, Old Yin. Three heads, Old Yang. I'm scared. So many changing lines. We will look first at, we'll just see what our hexagram even is here. Our bottom trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, broken, broken. This is Kun Earth. Kun is Earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. The top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, broken, solid. This is Li, fire, and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Li, fire, and light above Kun, earth. Give us the primary hexagram 64. No, Kun, earth. 35. Makes way more sense. And once our changing lines change, that of 2, 3, 5, and 6, our bottom trigram will transform to broken, solid, solid. Xun, wind or wood. Yeah. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. And our top or outer trigram of our supporting hexagram will be read as solid, solid, broken. Dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Dewy, lake or marsh above Li, fire and light. Give us hexagram 49. No, that can't be accurate. Yes, and oh, that's why. Lee, fire and light above dewy lake or marsh. 38, rather. No. It is dewy lake or marsh. Oh, it's not leaf, fire, and light. It's broken, solid, solid. Oh. Solid, solid, broken. Above, broken, solid, solid. Okay, that's right. Dewy lake or marsh above soon, wind or wood. My bad. Is 28. Yeah. All right. We will get the title to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 35, our primary hexagram, I-ming calls advance. Clear-minded sincerity, advancing illumination. And our supporting hexagram 28 puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction, an underlying influence that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. I'm going to mix those up. It is 28. Excess of the great. Following desires, delighting in externals, inability to control strength. So to start out, we will look at Kibi's I Ching Tarot. See the pictures that she rendered for each of these hexagrams. 35. Progress. Display your talent, desire, advance, dawn. From setbacks, remember your original intentions and move on. If your intentions are sincere, you will be trusted, but don't pretend to be more capable than you are. He's got a mask hanging around his neck. Like a mask necklace. All right, and our supporting hexagram, putting our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 28, sagging under the load. I feel that. All right. 28, sagging under the load. Load, support is poor, unbalanced. Although the support is weak, the contents are heavy. It is busy taking on an important mission. The design depicts withered branches and flowers, 2nd and 5th line. I drew willow blossoms on dead branches to express the imbalance. Touche. J. Next, we will look at Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary. Hexagram 35, Advancing. Key questions. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context. How can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time? Key questions. What gifts and opportunities have you been given? How can you make the most of them? Oracle. Advancing. Prince Kang used a gift of horses to breed a multitude. In the course of a day, he mated them 3 times. Prince Kang was the brother of Wu, the martial king who became first ruler of the Zhao dynasty. He supported him faithfully, and Wu rewarded him with a gift of horses. So when you are like Kang, you have remarkable gifts of strength and inspiration. Gifts as beautiful as horses that enable you to travel further and faster. You are popular, you are blessed. Kang did not just sit back and admire his horses. He worked intensively to multiply them and magnify the gift. To be truly blessed, you need to act accordingly. To advance and prosper, you need to seize all you are given as an opportunity. Image. Light comes forth over the earth, advancing. A noble one's own light shines in her character. The light emerging over the earth is like sunrise. Just as the sun appears to be daily renewed and sustained by the earth, so the noble one's light emerges from her character, which is the earth she's made of. Her inner quality, willingness to give and receive, sustains the shining light in everything she does. Sequence. Advancing follows from Hexagram 34, Great Vigor. Things cannot be completed with vigor, and so advancing follows. Advancing means making progress. It is not enough just to be strong and stand firm. You will want to make the most of the strength you have and make it mean something by putting it to use. Pair. Advancing forms a pair with Hexagram 36, Brightness Hidden. Advancing means daylight, brightness hidden means castigation. Now you are the one who is popular, blessed and bathed in sunlight. Sometimes you are the one who is punished, pursued and cast out into the dark. Next we will look at our supporting Hexagram 28, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Key questions. Well, Hexagram 28 is called Great Exceeding. Key questions. What is overloaded? What have you outgrown? What must you do? Oracle. Great Exceeding. The ridgepole warps. Fruitful to have a direction to go. Creating success. When you exceed something, you cross over a line and make a transition. The traditional Chinese house has a structure like an old-fashioned tent. Uprights support a horizontal ridgepole, and all the weight of roof and walls is suspended from there. Here, the ridgepole's limits have been exceeded. The supporting framework is no longer adequate to the weight it's asked to bear. This means stress, and also a greatness of spirit and purpose that goes beyond the scope of the situation. It is fruitful to have a direction to go, to reach out imaginatively and explore. Since things cannot hold up as they are, there must be movement. Image. The lake submerges the tree, great exceeding. A noble one stands alone without fear, withdraws from the time without sadness. Water should sustain the tree, but an excess will drown it. Interaction and communication should sustain you, but too much will be overwhelming, drowning the natural growth of your spirit in a flood of demands and expectations. You cannot possibly absorb all these demands and preoccupations into your own identity. You would only lose yourself. So a noble one is not afraid to stand alone, nor is she depressed at leaving society behind. She is moved by an inner purpose and not a product of her environment. Sequence. Great exceeding follows from Hexagram 27, nourishment. With no nurturance, it is not possible to act, and so great exceeding follows. Great exceeding is the opposite experience to nourishment, imbalance instead of balance, overloading the structure instead of living within it. But to be capable of the dynamic action great exceeding requires, you need to be well nourished. Next, we will look at our changing lines 2, 3, 5, and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements, and is the most focused part of the reading. Each has their own general context. That of line 2, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. That of line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. And line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. I'll show you this in case you want to screenshot it. So when we go through our changing lines, it's make a descent. All right. Hexagram 35, changing line 2. Now advancing, now apprehensive, constancy, good fortune. Accepting fine armor, blessing from your ancestral mother. As you make progress, you face a transition and feel anxious and uncertain about what comes next. Going on steadily will bring good fortune. You receive a gift of protection and security that sets limits to your anxiety and becomes a mantle of confidence. The gift comes as a blessing from an ancestor, a grandmother, perhaps a queen. Whether or not you meet her, you know someone is watching over your well-being. Changing line 3, all have confidence, regrets vanish. To experience a consensus in your support, a wholehearted affirmation of what you understand and aspire to, is a powerful gift. As you gather confidence from both outer and inner sources, you build the capacity to move on with your journey, letting regrets fade away behind you. Changing line 5, regrets vanish, letting go, gaining, do not worry, going on is good fortune, nothing that does not bear fruit. Not everything is going to work out. Not all people are always honorable, kind, and positive. Consequently, your best efforts will not always be justly rewarded with success. And this is not a sign that the world is broken and you must mend it. Let your regrets go for everything lost and every apparent opportunity that wasn't quite realized. Find an overview that puts gain and loss into perspective, and do not use them as a personal scorecard. You have better measures of your true progress. You do what you can, let it be, and move on. and you are that much richer and more alive because you're in motion. In changing line 6, advancing with your horns, holding fast, use this to subjugate the city. Danger, good fortune, not a mistake. Constancy, shame. You tap into your strongest motivation, throw your whole self into the effort, and charge headlong for your goal. You may not have any clear idea of how to direct your energy, but you hold fast to your objective and refuse to let go. At least you will not miss any opportunity for lack of trying. This kind of approach can be used to attain a single, central, personal goal, something specific that is within your own realm. It's dangerous, but you use that to spur yourself into determined action and break through fear or self-doubt. However, this is only a short-term tactic. To adopt the horns first approach in the long term would be shameful. Guy sitting on the bowl in that picture of the card. Horns first approach, 38. Show that card again. Wait, no, 35 rather. Yeah, this guy, he's got white and black hair. It's like a living yin-yang symbol, maybe? With a wand and looks like a hawk flying above him. Or her. Next, we will look at I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Hexagram 35, I-ming calls advancing. A securely established lord presents many horses and grants audience 3 times in a day. Explanation. Advance is progress. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is fire, luminous, and below is earth, receptive. Producing understanding by receptivity, using understanding to practice receptivity, according with the time and according with truth, illumination grows day by day. Therefore, it is called advance. This hexagram represents being sincere and clear-minded, advancing the firing. It follows on the previous hexagram, withdrawal. Withdrawal means stilling strength and not using it lightly. If one does not use strength lightly, then the mind is empty and open. When the mind is empty, it is observant and careful, not being fooled by desire for things. Within black there is white. Spiritual illumination comes of itself. The original nature of innate knowledge and capacity in people is bright and lucid. Its quality is fundamentally illumined. By mixing with acquired conditioning, however, the discriminatory consciousness takes over, and the human mentality arises, so the mind of Tao is concealed. Thus, the strength of innate knowledge changes into delinquent assertiveness, and the receptivity of innate capacity changes into delinquent pliability. When the mind gets mixed up in things, this shuts down the openness of awareness, and the spiritual luminosity is obscured. When sages teach people to advance the fire, this is just a matter of promoting restoration of illumination from non-illumination. The work of fostering illumination cannot be done without obedience, which means according with the time and according with truth. When always maintaining the mind of Tao and not producing the human mentality, knowledge and capacity are good. What heaven bestows on humans is good, and people who submit to heaven, obey heaven, and accord with heaven are good too. When heaven and humanity act in concert, there is spontaneous truthfulness and illumination. That illumination grows daily, from subtle to evident, gradually advancing to a realm of lofty understanding and far-reaching vision. This is represented by a securely established Lord presenting many horses and granting audience 3 times in a day. A securely established Lord is a ruler in a state of security, tranquility, and peace. The hour of the horse is noon, which is in the province of the image of the light of fire. Multitude is what is produced by the earth, so it is in the province of the image of receptivity of earth. A day is the light of a day. Illumination is above. Granting audience 3 times is the receptivity of earth. Receptivity is below. People's real mind with innate knowledge and capacity is the master of the body, like a secure ruler. The real mind not turning away from innate good, using both illumination and receptivity, is like a secure ruler giving many horses as presents. Producing understanding by receptivity, using understanding to practice receptivity, is like granting audience 3 times a day. 3 audiences means repeated reception, so that the unreceptive will eventually become receptive. Therein is the work of eliminating falsehood and maintaining truth. When one eliminates falsehood and maintains truth, the human mind becomes submissive and receptive, and the mind of Tao becomes manifest. Truthfulness leads to illumination. Illumination leads to truthfulness. When truthfulness and illumination are simultaneously included, one clarifies the quality of illumination and rests in the highest good. Then the work of advancing the fire is completed. Next, we will look at our supporting hexagram 28, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Excess of the great. When the great is excessive, the ridgepole bends. It is good to go somewhere. That is developmental. Explanation. Excess of the great means there is an excess of yang energy. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is lake, joyous, and below is wind, entering. Going along with what is inside, delighting in externals, following what one desires. When happiness culminates, it produces grief. In the body of the hexagram, inside are 4 yangs and outside are 2 yins. Yang exceeds yin, and yin does not come up to yang. Therefore, it is called excess of the great. This hexagram represents harmonious blending of the medicinal substances, in which fullness requires use of emptiness. It follows on the previous hexagram, nurturance of the great. In nurturance of the great, one is strong yet can stop and be still. Stilling strength, not letting yang energy get too excessive, is properly the means to nurture strength. In spiritual alchemy, the path of the gold elixir, we take 2 times 8 ounces of the polar energies and congeal them into an embryo. It requires that the great and small be undamaged, and both realms be complete. If yang energy is too strong and yin energy too weak, then yin and yang are not in harmony, and you lose the path of continual renewal. When yin culminates, there will be decay, and when yang culminates, there will be deterioration. Going on in this way, the trouble of the ridgepole bending and breaking is inevitable. When the ridgepole snaps, the whole house falls down. In the same way, practitioners of the Tao who promote yang too much, who do not know when enough is enough, who can be great but cannot be small, suffer damage to their spiritual house. If you can proceed breezily without becoming too intense, being harmonious and easygoing without clinging, mastering the ability to adapt to changes, preventing danger and being aware of perils, then firmness and flexibility will correspond. Yin and yang will balance each other. Though great, you can avoid excess so that it is beneficial to go somewhere. Consummating essence and perfecting life, you develop without hindrance. Next, we will look at our changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here's some places you may find yourself. Takes precedence over all other elements, and they are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 2 has the general context, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. Changing line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition, with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. And changing line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 35, advance, changing line 2. Advancing, grieving, rectitude is good. This great blessing is received from the grandmother. Explanation. In the middle of the darkness of 3 yins, one not only is unable to increase illumination, one even obscures it in some way. Therefore, in advancing, one is aggrieved. However, if one preserves rectitude in spite of weakness and is not deluded by false yin, one will not be aggrieved, even if one does not progress. Therefore, one is fortunate through rectitude. This is because if one can be correctly pure, one can affect emptiness and maintain calm. So the true yin appears and the false yin vanishes. This is like receiving this great blessing from one's grandmother. This is not rushing to promote illumination when in the midst of darkness. Changing line 3. The group concurs, regret vanishes. Explanation. Unable to humble oneself and obey, instead raising oneself to obey, seems to be incorrect and productive of regret. But when one's nature is flexible, while one's will is firm, one does not follow yin but follows yang, borrowing the other's illumination to cure one's own ignorance. You go along with the other, and the other goes along with you. Therefore, the group concurs in advancing. So where there was regret, it can vanish. This is following the illumination of another when one is not illumined oneself. Wow. Changing line 5. Regret vanishes. Loss or gain, don't worry. It is good to go. Everything will benefit. Explanation. In the middle of 2 yangs, having understood one's own non-illumination and also understood the illumination of others, one borrows strength to cure weakness. Thus, where there was originally regret, regret can vanish. Regret comes from the mind not being open. If one knows how to empty and open the mind, one can thus seek from others, and so be able to fill the belly. Once one has filled the belly, fortune, misfortune, and stopping at sufficiency are all in the palm of one's hand. One can thereby be free from worry about loss or gain, and go straight ahead without doubt. Going ahead in advancing the fire and working, with good results beneficial in every way. This is the illumination of becoming empty to bring on fulfillment. And changing line 6. Advancing the horns. This requires conquering one's domain. There is danger, but it bodes well, so there will be no blame. But even though correct, it is humiliating. Explanation. Adamant strength overcoming oneself, only knowing how to advance illumination, but not how to empty illumination. This therefore calls for conquering one's own domain. One's domain means one's personal domain. Conquering one's own domain means the work of overcoming oneself. The work of overcoming oneself is emptying the human mind. If one does not empty the mind and relies on adamant strength alone, strength must overcome strength, and there is bound to be danger before gaining good results and becoming blameless. Using illumination in this way, even though one conquers oneself and attains correctness, it is still in the province of striving and does not come about spontaneously, so one does not avoid humiliation before the wise. This is illumination in which one is strong, but too proud. So in the path of advancing illumination and operating the firing, before illumination, one must first seek illumination. Once illumined, then one should empty that illumination, making it open. With emptiness and fulfillment working together, firmness and flexibility balance each other. Spontaneously, sincere and clear-minded, with illumination based on truthfulness, the illumination progresses daily, grows daily more lofty, so it can be used without end. Taken without exhaustion, the earth is ever covered with yellow sprouts. The world is filled with golden blossoms. There is nowhere one cannot use illumination, nowhere that can damage that illumination. Next, we will look at the commentary section for each of our hexagrams. 35, advance. Fire above, earth below. Light emerges over the earth, advancing. Thus do superior people by themselves illumine the quality of enlightenment. Advance is progress. Above is fire, associated with the sun, and below is earth. This is the sun emerging over the earth. The sun is light. The earth is basically dark. When the light of the sun emerges over the earth, it goes from darkness to light. This is the image of advance. What superior people see in this is that just as the sun sets and also rises, in the same way people can obscure their good qualities and also can illumine them. Therefore, superior people take it upon themselves to illumine the quality of enlightenment. To illumine means to make manifest. The quality of enlightenment is the spiritual nature of innate knowledge and innate capacity that is fundamental to humankind. This nature is originally truly open, subtly existing, radiantly bright, without obscurity. But once it is mixed with acquired temperament, it goes from clarity to obscurity and loses its basic nature. But as unclarity comes from oneself, so also does clarity come from oneself. It is just a matter of whether one illumines this nature by oneself or not. If one actually knows how to illumine enlightenment, then one can illumine it. One should set right to work to cultivate it, clearing away all accumulated blockage, shed all kinds of feelings about things, and work on the ground of reality. Being careful and wary, nipping insidious inroads of conditioning in the bud, the human mentality disappears of itself and the mind of Tao manifests of itself. Temperament spontaneously sublimates and the real nature spontaneously is revealed. This then is the original open awareness without obscurity, round and bright, clean and naked, bare and untrammeled. in our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 28, great excess, lake above, wind below. Moisture destroys wood in excess. Thus, superior people stand alone without fear and leave society without distress. Great excess is excess of the great. Above is lake, associated with moisture. Below is wind, associated with wood. The nature of water is to flow downward, and the nature of wood is to float upward. When water rises above wood, it can destroy wood. And when wood descends below water, it can be destroyed by the moisture. This is the image of great excess. What superior people see in this is that just as a great excess of moisture can destroy wood, so can a great excess of talent and intelligence in people destroy their character. Therefore, they take the model of water rising above wood in the sense of standing alone without fear, and take the model of wood descending below water in the sense of concealing themselves and being free from distress. Thus they accomplish the will of a person of exceeding greatness and perfect the character of a person of exceeding greatness. Because superior people who practice the Tao consider nature and life to be the most important matter, they look down upon all existence as empty of absoluteness, being like a clear lake unsullied by the dust of objects. They make use of the phenomena of the world to practice the principles of the Tao, playing a unique tune on an individual harp. Unmoved by the prospects of life or death, they stand aloof of all things without fear. Like the flexibility of wood, they have talent, but do not presume upon it. They have intelligence, but do not rely on it. Though simple in appearance, they hold a treasure. Concealing their illumination and nurturing it in obscurity, they do not seek to be known to others. They are hidden in a profound privacy and have no distress. Having no fear means that one cannot be constrained by things. Having will and energy far beyond that of others. Having no distress means that errant thoughts do not arise, and one has cultivated development far beyond that of others. Because of having no fear and no distress, one can accomplish that which is rare in the world, and be beyond the perception and beyond the reach of ordinary people. This one has a cool Merkaba thing in it. I don't know why that stood up. All right. Next, we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I have left links to in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself. Hello. And has synthesized several I Ching hexagrams in one, or I Ching commentaries in one helpful place. He synthesizes them here and puts in helpful quotes from things like the Kabbalah and people like Carl Jung. Hexagram 35, our primary hexagram, he calls Advance of Consciousness. Other titles might be Progress, Prospering, the symbol of forwardness, To Advance, Advancement, Making Headway, Getting the Idea, Comes the Dawn, Judgment, Leg. In Advance of Consciousness, we see a prince who secures the tranquility of the people presented on that account with numerous horses by the king, and 3 times in a day received at interviews. Wilhelm/Baines, progress. The powerful prince is honored with horses in large numbers. In a single day, he is granted audience 3 times. Blofeld, progress. The richly endowed prince receives royal favors in the form of numerous steeds and is granted audience 3 times in a single day. This passage indicates great merit, richly rewarded. Lu, the Marquis Kong, rich, powerful, healthy, is bestowed with many horses by the king, who receives him 3 times in a single day. Ritzema/Karcher, prospering. The calm feudatory avails of bestowing horses to multiply the multitudes. Daytime, sun, 3 times reflected. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of thriving in the full light of the sun. It emphasizes that contributing to this increase by helping things to flourish is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy, the Lord of Kong, is herewith awarded horses in luxuriant number, during daylight thrice connecting. Cleary 2, advancing, a securely established lord is presented with many horses and grants audience 3 times a day. Wu, advancement indicates that the prince who has secured peace and prosperity of the state is conferred with many fine horses. The king grants him an audience 3 times in one day. The image, leg, the image of the earth and that of the bright sun coming forth above it form advance of consciousness. The superior man, in accordance with this, gives himself to make more brilliant his bright virtue. Wilhelm/Baines, the sun rises over the earth, the image of progress. Thus, the superior man himself brightens his bright virtue. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes fire blazing from the earth. The superior man reflects in his person the glory of heaven's virtue. Lu, the sun rising above the earth is the symbol of progress. Thus, the superior man brightens his character. Ritzema/Karcher, brightness issuing forth above earth, prospering. A Chunsu, or chief sun or superior person, uses originating enlightening to brighten actualizing Tao. And to actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, day, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Cleary 2, light emerges over the ground, advancing. Developed people illumine the quality of enlightenment by themselves. Wu, brightness rises above the earth, this is advancement. Thus the Chun-Si keeps his bright virtue shining. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, in advance of consciousness, we have the bright sun appearing above the earth, the symbol of docile submission cleaving to that of the great brightness, and the magnetic line advanced and moving above. All these things give us the idea of a prince who secures the tranquility of the people. Leg, the subject of the judgment is a feudal prince who serves his country, whose services to his country have made him acceptable to his king. The king's favor has been shown to him by gifts and personal attentions. The symbolism of the lines indicates the situations encountered by the prince. The written character for this hexagram means to advance, a quality it shares with hexagrams number 46, pushing upward, and number 53, gradual progress. In the present case, the sun ascending from the earth to the meridian readily suggests the idea of advancing. Hu Ping Wen in the Yuan dynasty says, "Of the strong things there is none so strong as heaven, and hence the superior man patterns himself on its strength. Of bright things there is none so bright as the sun, and he patterns himself on its brightness." Anthony, this hexagram concerns self-development which yields progress in our external life situation. We are not making progress. If we are not making progress, we should review our attitude. Some widely accepted ideas may be decadent from the viewpoint of the sage, hence obstruct progress. Anthony's sage is conceptually identical to the self. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. When the autonomous manifestations of our inner drives are channeled, their energy becomes the ego's own. Psychologically interpreted, ego and self are in accord. The superior man focuses his awareness on perfecting the work. Sometimes this can take the meaning of wise up. The trigram of clarity in progression over that of docility gives the formula for an advance of consciousness. The submission of the ego to the restrictions of the work and the consequent tranquil subjugation of one's restless drives, appetites, and impulses eventually results in a focused flow of energy from within. After years of effort, this is sometimes felt physically as a radiating sensation emanating from the chest or heart region. To receive this figure without changing lines does not necessarily mean that one has reached this phase of the work, but it suggests progress in that direction. The traditional name of this hexagram is in fact progress. The king presenting horses to the prince in reward for pacifying the kingdom is analogous to the self rewarding the ego for controlling the autonomous forces within the psyche. This is a quintessentially shamanic discipline. The horses symbolize tamed drives and emotions. Such circumstances indicate an advance of consciousness or progression toward the goal of enlightenment or psychic integration, symbolized by the sun traversing the earth. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. That state of life, dynamism, in which consciousness realizes itself as a split and separated personality that yearns and strives towards union with its unknown and unknowable partner, the self, Jung has called the individuation process. It is a conscious striving for becoming what one is, or rather, is meant to be. The last sentence of the above quotation is exactly analogous to the Ritsuma/Karcher translation of the image of this hexagram, wherein the superior man, Chun Tzu, uses originating enlightening to brighten actualizing Tao. Actualizing Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, day, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Psychologically interpreted, then, this hexagram addresses various themes encountered during the progress of the individuation process, which is nothing if not an advance of consciousness. The key phrase in Legge's judgment is tranquility of the people. It is relatively easy to sublimate one's drives, yet still feel resentful about it. Indeed, that is the form that the process normally takes at the beginning of the work. Our inner forces are like children or animals who must learn to accept the restrictions of discipline. Once they have accepted it and have ceased to resent it, i.e., once they have become tranquil, they are ready to be useful to the self's intentions. For example, an untrained dog will instinctively chase and kill sheep if it gets the chance to do so. On the other hand, a properly trained dog will herd and control a flock of sheep even in its master's absence. Anyone who has observed a trained sheepdog in action knows what amazing feats they accomplish with great joy in the performance. They are tranquil in their role, and will even protect the sheep from untrained dogs that would kill them. When our instincts have learned how to tranquilly accept discipline, they are ready to assist us in the higher levels of the work. Until that time, the work consists largely of dog training. The analogy is apt because just as an untrained dog is never as happy in its willfulness as a well-trained dog is in its purposefulness, so undisciplined permissiveness cannot compare with the joys of controlled power and focused intent. Next, we will look at our supporting hexagram, 28, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Critical mass. Other titles might be preponderance of the great, the symbol of great passing, excess, great excess, the passing of greatness, great surpassing, great gains, experience, greater than great, greatness in excess, dominance by the mighty, the passing of greatness, excess of the great, law of karma, judgment, leg. Critical mass depicts a weak beam. Under such conditions, it is advantageous to move in any direction whatever. Success is indicated. Wilhelm/Baines, preponderance of the great, the ridgepole sags to the breaking point. It furthers one to have somewhere to go. Success. Blofeld, excess, the ridgepole sags, it is favorable to have some goal or destination in view. Success. A glance at the hexagram will show that it is too heavy in the middle and too weak at the ends. A number of firm lines is generally auspicious, but there can be too much of a good thing. Lou, great excess, the ridgepole is crooked. It benefits to go anywhere. Success. Ritzema/Karcher, great exceeding, the ridgepole sagging. Harvesting, possessing directed going, growing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of your connection to a ruling principle. It emphasizes that pushing the guiding idea beyond ordinary limits and accepting the results is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy, great surpassing, the ridgepole bows upward, beneficial to have some place to go. Receipt. Cleary 1, when the great is excessive, the ridgepole bends, it is good to go somewhere that is developmental. When the ridgepole snaps, the whole house falls down. In the same way, practitioners of the Tao who promote yang too much, who do not know when enough is enough, who can be great but cannot be small, suffer damage to their spiritual house. Cleary 2, when greatness passes, the ridgepole bends, it is beneficial to have somewhere to go, for you will succeed. Wu, excess of the great indicates a beam that warps. It will be advantageous to have undertakings. It will be pervasive. The image. Leg. The image of trees beneath a marsh forms critical mass. The superior man, in accordance with this, fearlessly stands alone and stays retired from the world without regret. Wilhelm/Baines, the lake rises above the trees, the image of preponderance of the great. Thus, the superior man, when he stands alone, is unconcerned, and if he has to renounce the world, he is undaunted. Undaunted. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes a forest submerged in a great body of water. The superior man, though standing alone, is free from fear. He feels no discontent in withdrawing from the world. This is suggested by the component trigrams. Water is necessary for the nourishment of trees, but too much of it can cause serious damage. Lu, the lake rising over the trees symbolizes great excess. The superior man, when isolated, is undisturbed. If he has to retreat from society, he feels no regret. Ritzema/Karcher, marsh submerging wood, great exceeding. A Chansu, or chief son or superior person, uses solitary, establishing, not to fear. A Chansu uses retiring from the age without melancholy. Cleary 2, moisture destroys wood. Developed people stand alone without fear and leave society without distress. Only when sustained by the power to stand alone without fear and avoid society without distress can learning be firmly rooted and development have a proper basis. Then it is possible to refine and support the mediocre. Wu, marsh covers over wood. This is excess of the great. Thus the Chansi stands alone without fear and withdraws from the world without melancholy. Confucian commentary. Confucius/Leg, excess is weakly supported at either end, with weakness in both the lowest and topmost lines. The dynamic lines are in excess, but two of them are in the central positions. The trigrams of flexibility and satisfaction indicate that there will be advantage in moving in any direction whatever. There will be success. Great indeed is the work to be done during this extraordinary time. Leg, extraordinary times require extraordinary skill in their management. The figure shows two magnetic lines at top and bottom with four dynamic lines between them, giving the image of a great beam unable to sustain its own weight. Lines 2 and 5 are both dynamic and central, however, and from this and the attributes of the component trigrams, a good auspice is obtained. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. A stressful situation is best managed with a comprehensive strategy, or, in the chess game of life, one succeeds by planning several moves in advance. The superior man serves the work by going his own way, regardless of public opinion. Wilhelm titles this hexagram Preponderance of the Great. I prefer R.L. Wing's paraphrase of critical mass as more evocative of the figure's meaning in modern terminology. In critical mass, 4 dynamic lines lurk inside of the hexagram, weakly contained at top and bottom by 2 magnetic lines. This energetic concentration could explode in an unpredictable release of force, and hence the judgment tells us to move now. Remember, non-action is also action, to avoid unwanted consequences. Often the outcome is predictable. Be prepared to just walk away if and when that is your best move. Legg's translation of the judgment is, it is advantageous to move in any direction whatever. This is a different message than Wilhelm's. It furthers one to have somewhere to go. Legg's version implies an almost hysterical flight from danger, while Wilhelm's rendition suggests prior intention and planning. The latter interpretation is definitely what is meant here, as confirmed by Cleary's Buddhist commentary. When the transformative path is flourishing, contaminations easily arise. It is best to set up guidelines and regulations. When meditation work is advanced, ignorance is about to dissolve. It is best to exercise the mind skillfully. Coupled with Cleary's translation of the image as developed people stand alone without fear, avoid society without distress, the idea is that one should follow one's best intuition and ignore popular illusions, political correctness, or inner fears. Psychologically, conventional thinking, socially conditioned reflexes, knee-jerk responses, etc. During a time of critical mass, pay close attention to direction from the self to preserve the work. This is not the time to follow the crowd. Sometimes this can mean that you are obliged to go it alone, one of the work's frequent tests. A quote from Gareth Knight in A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism: the gulf is something that has to be leaped, and leaped alone, stripped of all hindering burdens in faith. It is thus one of the crisis points of spiritual progress because of the great temptation to turn back from the unknown to the apparent safety of known things, and to succumb to this temptation is to lose all the fruits of past endeavor. Suggestions for meditation. Compare the judgment and image of this hexagram with those of hexagram number 32, consistency. Anthony, we must regain modesty through the effort to rid ourselves of strong elements that cause us to press forward. The strong elements may exist in someone else, causing them to assault us with their fear, mistrust, or doubt. Strong refers to impetuous movement to resolve what is ambiguous. We can meet the challenge by remaining detached and letting things go through their changes. To be truly rich is to remain modest. To be truly powerful is to remain reticent. Next, we will look at our changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Each one has its own general context, that of line 2, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections, that of line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition, with fear or desire, resolution or indecision, that of line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command, that of line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Going back to our primary hexagram 35, advance, to read changing lines 2, 3, 5, and 6. or advance of consciousness, as James Dekorne likes to call it. Changing line 2. Leg. The second line magnetic shows its subject with the appearance of advancing and yet of being sorrowful. If she can be firm and correct, there will be good fortune. She will receive great blessing from her grandmother. Compare this line and its situation with line 2 of Hexagram 62. Wilhelm/Baines. Progressing but in sorrow. Perseverance brings good fortune. Then one obtains great happiness from one's ancestress. Blofeld. Where progress is being made sorrowfully, righteous persistence brings good fortune. A little happiness is received, thanks to the Queen Mother. Lu. When progress comes with sadness, persistence brings good fortune. He receives good fortune from the Queen Mother. Ritzimal/Karcher. Prospering thus, apprehensive thus, trial significant, acquiescing in closely woven chainmail, blessing, tending towards one's kingly mother. Slofnacy. Aquatically, gloomily, determination is auspicious, receiving this strong good fortune from his royal mother. Cleary 1. Advancing, grieving, rectitude is good. This great blessing is received from the grandmother. Wu. It is like advancing and it is like having concerns. Perseverance will bring good fortune. He will receive a big fortune from his grandmother. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. She will receive this great blessing because she is in the central place and the correct position for her. Wilhelm/Baines. Because of the central and correct position, Blofeld. Happiness is implied by the position of this line, which is central to the lower trigram. Ritzimal/Karcher. Using centering, correcting indeed. Clary 2. Because of balance and rectitude. Wu. He will receive a big fortune because he is central and correct. Leg. Line 2 is magnetic, as is her correlate line 5. Therefore, she has to mourn in obscurity. But her position is central and correct, and she maintains the momentum until eventual success is achieved. The symbolism says she receives it from her grandmother, and readers will be startled by the extraordinary statement, as I was when I first read it. Literally, the text says the king's mother, but king's father and king's mother are well-known Chinese appellations for grandfather and grandmother. This is the view given on the passage by Zheng Tzu, Chu Hsi, and the Kang Hsi editors. They all agree that the name points us to line 5, the correlate of 2, and the ruler of the hexagram. Line 5 is the sovereign who at length acknowledges the worth of the feudal lord and gives her the great blessing. I am not sure that motherly king would not be the best and fairest translation of the phrase. Canon McClatchy renders it as imperial mother, that is the wife of imperial heaven, Juno, who occupies the throne of the diagram, vis-a-vis the 5th line, which is soft and therefore feminine. She is the great ancestress of the human race. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. The man appears to be advancing but is grieving because he is prevented from making contacts with men in authority. His perseverance in adhering to correct principles will be rewarded by blessings from the mild ruler. Wing. Your progress is not as fulfilling as it might be because you are prevented from experiencing significant communication with someone in authority. Yet unexpected good fortune will come to you if you persevere in your efforts and remain virtuous in your principles. Editor. There is puzzlement about the symbolism of the grandmother even among the Chinese commentaries on this line. Our hypothesis is that although the symbolism emerging from the objective psyche takes different forms in different cultures, it always describes the same general archetypes. We are justified, therefore, in comparing this line with the analogous concept from the Kabbalah, the sphere of awareness called Baina. Baina corresponds to the Chinese notion of the primordial yin, the essence of the feminine. Canon McClatchy's association of Juno, the wife of imperial heaven, to this line could as well apply to Baina. In the Kabbalah, Baina is closely associated with sorrow. identical with Our Lady of Sorrows in Catholic Christian symbolism. What is being conveyed in this line, then, is the growth potential inherent in adversity. Kabbalists may note similarities here with the symbolism of the 17th path of the Tree of Life. A quote from Gareth Knight in Kabbalistic Symbolism: "Grief is a purgative and strongly disruptive force, and when the essential work of breaking down adhesions and dispersing poisons has been done by it, it gives place to a deep lassitude and feeling of emptiness which can act as a purified basis for new growth. People are so made that they will not or cannot realize a thing fully unless they are hit in the most vital part in some deep emotional sense. And so only by sorrow and by going from sorrow to sorrow can an individual's evolution proceed. The man who cannot or will not feel sorrow or face it in others cannot proceed at all." James Dekorne breaks changing line 2 down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A trial of tears leads to understanding, or trail of tears leads to understanding. B, through adversity we acquire strength. Line 3, changing line 3, leg. The third line, magnetic, shows its subject trusted by all around her. All occasion for repentance will disappear. Wilhelm/Baines, all are in accord. Remorse disappears. Lou, when the majority assents, remorse vanishes. Ritzema/Karcher, crowds, sincerity, repenting extinguished. Slofnacy, the masses are real. Regret is gone. Clary 1, the group concurs. Regret vanishes. Wu, there is consensus among many people, no regret. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, their common aim is to move upwards and act. Wilhelm/Baines, because there is a will to go upward. Blofeld, this implies unanimous determination to press upwards. Ritzema/Karcher, moving above indeed. Clary 2, the aim is upward progress. Wu, a desire to advance. Leg. Line 3 is magnetic in a dynamic place, but the first and second lines share her desire to advance. They are all united by a common trust and aim, hence the good auspice. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the man moves forward with the trust and support of all around him. Wing, your progress is dependent upon the company and encouragement of others. The benefits of this common trust will remove any cause for remorse. Editor, this can be seen as a positive image of forces seeking synthesis. Psychologically, the line suggests an inner unity of some kind. Thoughts and feelings are in harmony and predisposed toward transformation. A quote from Abraham Lincoln, no man is good enough to govern another man without that other's consent. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, the image suggests a cooperative advance, and B, you're on the right track. Changing line 5. Leg, the 5th line magnetic shows how all occasion for repentance disappears from its subject. But let her not concern herself about whether she shall fail or succeed. To advance will be fortunate and in every way advantageous. Wilhelm/Baines, remorse disappears. Take not gain and loss to heart. Undertakings bring good fortune. Everything serves to further. Blofeld, regret vanishes. Care not for loss or gain. To seek some goal or destination now would bring good fortune. Everything is favorable. Lou, remorse vanishes. One should not mind gain or loss. To act brings good fortune and benefit in everything. Ritzema/Karcher, repenting extinguished, letting go, acquiring, no cares, going significant, without not harvesting. Slofnacy, regret is gone, the arrow is gotten, do not pity, going is auspicious, there is nothing not beneficial. Wu, there will be no regret. He is not concerned with either gains or losses. To advance is auspicious. Nothing is disadvantageous. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Her movement in advance will afford ground for congratulation. Wilhelm/Bain's undertaking brings blessing. Blowfold. If without regard for loss or gain, we just press forward, our actions will be blessed. Ritzema/Karcher. Going, possessing reward indeed. Clary 2. If you go, there will be joy. Wu. To advance has much to celebrate. Leg. In line 5, the ruler of the hexagram and her intelligent sovereign meet happily. She holds on her right course, indifferent as to results, but things are so ordered that she is, and will continue to be, crowned with success. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. The man occupies an influential position with the intelligent sovereign. He remains gentle and reserved in his dealings. Let him not reproach himself for not obtaining all possible gains or regretfully take failures to heart. His beneficent influence will eventually be crowned with success. Wing. It is wise now to act with gentleness, reserve, and moderation regardless of the fact that you are in a position of great influence. Do not think about the gains you might make or the possible setbacks that could befall you. Continue in righteous progress and you will be blessed by good fortune. Editor. The magnetic, yielding ruler suggests an ego yielding to the demands of the work, accepting what comes rather than trying to influence the situation through egocentric conceptions of progress. There is a definite suggestion here of influences operating outside of awareness. Quote from Tibetan Yoga and Secret Doctrines. Through hearing, understanding, and wisdom, one should so comprehend the nature of all things as not to fall into the error of regarding matter and phenomena as real. James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 down into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, action is taken for its own sake, to effect an unknown purpose. Progress isn't dependent upon external appearances. B, profit and loss are illusions. Bear your burden with a smile. And C, don't worry, be happy. Everything is proceeding according to plan. And changing line 6. Leg. The 6th line dynamic shows one advancing his horns, but he only uses them to punish the rebellious people in his own city. The position is perilous, but there will be good fortune. Yet, however firm and correct he may be, there will be occasion for regret. Wilhelm/Bain's making progress with the horns is permissible only for the purpose of punishing one's own city. To be conscious of danger brings good fortune, no blame. Perseverance brings humiliation. Blowfold. He advances as with lowered horns, intent solely upon subduing the cities of his enemies. Whether his affairs go awry or prosper, he is not in error, but for him to persist thus would involve him in ignominy. Lu. Progressing to the horns, it is only in order to chastise his own city. Awareness of danger brings fortune and no blame. To continue brings humiliation. Ritzema/Karcher. Prospering one's horns, holding fast avails of subjugating the capital. Adversity significant, without fault. Trial, abashment. Slafnessy. Aquatic his horns, it is only to be used to attack the city. Danger, auspicious. There is no trouble. Determination is distressful. Clary 1. Advancing the horns, this requires conquering one's domain. There is danger, but it bodes well, so there will be no blame. But even though correct, it is humiliating. Clary 2. Hard work yields to good results, without blame. But even though correct, one is humiliated. Since one was unable to govern oneself early on, and only now has been capable of self-mastery, even though it is correct, it is still humiliating. Woo. He advances with his horns to quell disturbances of his town. Although he makes a risky move, he is not in error. His insistence is nevertheless regrettable. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. His course of procedure is not yet brilliant. Wilhelm/Baines, the way is not yet in the light. Blofeld, solely to subdue the cities, the way is not yet clear. Ritzema/Karcher, Tao not yet shining indeed. Cleary too, the way is not yet illumined. Wu, his administration is not beyond reproach. If he had done things right, there would have been no disturbances. Leg. Line 6 is dynamic and suggests the idea of its subject relentlessly pushing his advance with both firm correctness and exceptional force. The horns are an emblem of threatening strength, and though he uses them only against the rebels in his own state, the fact that a prince should have any occasion to use force is regrettable. This aggressiveness exceeds King Wen's concept of firm correctness for a ruler, and therefore his light is not yet that of the full-orbed sun. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. The man uses force in punishing the rebellious people of his own city. This is permissible. Continuation of the offensive, especially against strangers, however, will bring occasion for regret. Wing. Take aggressive and offensive measures only when you seek to discipline yourself. Such severe precautions will help you to avoid regretful errors. Do not, however, make the mistake of using the same force on others, or you will suffer the humiliation of alienation and failure. Editor. Psychologically interpreted, the city symbolizes the psyche, and the rebels symbolize any undisciplined emotions, drives, desires, appetites, thoughts, etc. The judgment specifically mentions the importance of gaining the tranquility of the people. Here, they are obviously not tranquil, so the idea of the hexagram has not been accomplished. Although force is required to stabilize the situation, martial law can hardly be regarded as anything but a temporary expedient. However necessary it may be at times, it is still humiliating for a ruler, ego, to have to resort to it. The line often refers to backsliding on some issue. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest, "The possibility of choice and relationship depends fundamentally upon getting out of this state of identity. As long as this unconscious identity with a drive or impulse persists, there is no possibility of choice, for we act like helpless puppets and we never know what strings have pulled us. There is no possibility for any personal conscious relatedness because neither of two people who are identical with their impulses knows what is moving him or what, if anything, this has to do with the other person. Separation from the original state of identity is fundamental for any psychological development and for personal differentiation." James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 into one possible succinct definition. A. Control yourself. Discipline must be applied to the restless aspects within your own psyche. Do nothing to try to influence others. Now we will get a randomly card-drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching while we sum up the reading. Primary hexagram had, which was 35, advance has Li, fire and light above Kun, earth. So this is like the sun rising over the earth. And the idea of it is that it is a time to advance. And there was a general who received an award of 3 horses, I believe, or mini horses from the king, and he was received many times in a day. He had the ability to go in and communicate with the ruler multiple times a day. He was found to be in favor of the king, so to speak. And the ruler is like the self, or you might call it the sage, that concept. So it's kind of like the idea that our ego has pleased the self in its handling of the work, that kind of concept. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, is hexagram 28, excess of the great. and this has dewy Laker Marsh above Xun Winder Wood. So the water rose up above the trees or the forest, the lake did. And a little bit of water is good for the trees or the plants, but too much will drown them. And so it's also got the image of let me give the card so it's easy to conceptualize. But if you see these lines, there's just a broken line on the bottom and on the top. And so you've got all these yang lines that represent strength, essentially, in the inside. And to hold them in, you just have two weak lines. And so it gives the perspective of the ridgepole sagging. There's a ridgepole holding up a building, and it is sagging under its own weight. And the idea with this hexagram is that it would be auspicious to move in any direction. Well, there's not, like James Dekorne brought out, it's not like you have to flee immediately. It's more the idea that you want to have a plan and a direction to go, and any direction would be advantageous at this point. It is good to move. It is in your favor to do so. And it's like all of the power has been welling up into the inside of the situation so much that it's full. It's time to act. Our changing lines, 2, 3, 5, and 6. The first line is that we got the second line in the hexagram. I hope that's not too confusing, but had an interesting concept behind it where someone was being awarded a great honor by their grandmother, or the motherly king. Really kind of interesting, all of that was. Changing line 2. Editor, there is puzzlement about the symbolism of the grandmother, even among the Chinese commentaries on this line. Let's read one of the ideas of it. The second line, magnetic, shows its subject with the appearance of advancing and yet of being sorrowful. If she can be firm and correct, there will be good fortune. She will receive great blessing from her grandmother, or the queen mother, or royal mother. But her position, going back to the editor. Chinese commentaries on this line, our hypothesis is that although the symbolism emerging from the objective psyche takes different forms in different cultures, it always describes the same general archetypes. We are justified, therefore, in comparing this line with an analogous concept from the Kabbalah, the sphere of awareness called Bina, or Bina, I think it's Bina. Bina corresponds to the Chinese notion of the primordial yin, the essence of the feminine. Canon McClatchy's association of Juno, the wife of imperial heaven, to this line could as well apply to Bina. In the Kabbalah, Bina is closely associated with sorrow, identical with Our Lady of Sorrows in Catholic Christian symbolism. What is being conveyed in this line, then, is the growth potential inherent in adversity. Kabbalists may note similarities here with the symbolism of the 17th path of the Tree of Life. And a quote from Gareth Knight in Kabbalistic symbolism for that. Grief is a purgative and strongly disruptive force, and when the essential work of breaking down adhesions and dispersing poisons has been done by it, it gives place to a deep lassitude and feeling of emptiness which can act as a purified basis for new growth. People are so made that they will not or cannot realize a thing fully. unless they are hit in the most vital part in some deep emotional sense. And so only by sorrow and by going from sorrow to sorrow can an individual's evolution proceed. The man who cannot or will not feel sorrow or face it in others cannot proceed at all. James Dekorne breaks changing line 2 into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A trail of tears leads to understanding, and B, through adversity we acquire strength. And then changing line 3 shows its subject trusted by all around her. All occasion for repentance will disappear. So everyone is in accord. In notes and paraphrases for changing line 3, Sue, the man moves forward with the trust and support of all around him. Wing, your progress is dependent upon the company and encouragement of others. The benefits of this common trust will remove any cause for remorse. Editor, this can be seen as a positive image of forces seeking synthesis. Psychologically, the line suggests an inner unity of some kind. Thoughts and feelings are in harmony and predisposed toward transformation. A quote from Abraham Lincoln, no man is good enough to govern another man without that other's consent. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, the image suggests a cooperative advance, and B, you're on the right track. And then changing line 5, it says, the fifth line magnetic shows how all occasion for repentance disappears from its subject. But let her not concern herself about whether she shall fail or succeed. To advance will be fortunate and in every way advantageous. Changing line 5 especially sounds similar to our supporting hexagram, where any direction is auspicious. It's good to just move. And this one is saying that nothing is disadvantageous. To advance is auspicious. Leg, in line 5, the ruler of the hexagram and her intelligent sovereign meet happily. She holds on her right course, indifferent as to results, but things are so ordered that she is, and will continue to be, crowned with success. Editor, the magnetic yielding ruler suggests an ego yielding to the demands of the work, accepting what comes rather than trying to influence the situation through egocentric conceptions of progress. There is a definite suggestion here of influences operating outside of awareness. A quote from Tibetan Yoga and Secret Doctrines, through hearing, understanding, and wisdom, one should so comprehend the nature of all things as not to fall into the error of regarding matter and phenomena as real. James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 into 3 succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, action is taken for its own sake to effect an unknown purpose. Progress isn't dependent upon external appearances. B, profit and loss are illusions. Bear your burden with a smile. And C, don't worry, be happy. Everything is proceeding according to plan. And then changing line 6, he advances as with lowered horns, intent solely upon subduing the cities of his enemies. Whether his affairs go awry or prosper, he is not in error, but for him to persist thus would involve him in ignominy. To continue brings humiliation. Basically, since one was unable to govern oneself early on and only now has been capable of self-mastery, even though it is correct, it is still humiliating. And editor, psychologically interpreted, the city symbolizes the psyche and the rebels symbolize any undisciplined emotions, drives, desires, appetites, thoughts, etc. The judgment specifically mentions the importance of gaining the tranquility of the people. Here, they are obviously not tranquil, so the idea of the hexagram has not been accomplished. Although force is required to stabilize the situation, martial law can hardly be regarded as anything but a temporary expedient. However necessary it may be at times, it is still humiliating for a ruler, or ego, to have to resort to it. The line often refers to backsliding on some issue. And then a quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. The possibility of choice in relationship depends fundamentally upon getting out of this state of identity. As long as this unconscious identity with a drive or impulse persists, there is no possibility of choice, for we act like helpless puppets and we never know what strings have pulled us. There is no possibility for any personal conscious relatedness because neither of two people who are identical with their impulses knows what is moving him or what, if anything, this has to do with the other person. Separation from the original state of identity is fundamental for any psychological development and for personal differentiation. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 into one succinct definition A. Control yourself. Discipline must be applied to the restless aspects within your own psyche. Do nothing to try to influence others. The idea here that he brought out between the restless parts of the psyche, and this is the part that draws it out the best. He says, oh yeah, this whole quote from E.C. Whitmont where he says there is no possibility for any personal conscious relatedness because neither of two people who are identical with their impulses knows what is moving him or what, if anything, this has to do with the other person. Separation from the original state of identity is fundamental for any psychological development and for personal differentiation. There's this thing I've been reading about called The Bicameral Mind by Julius Jaynes. I highly recommend people check out his work. But he has a similar idea to the idea of the left and right brain or hemispheres of the brain doing different operations in somebody. And the right brain, back before humans developed into the consciousness level that we're at now in this theory, the idea was that people received communication from the right hemisphere of their brains to the left, similar to in dreams how images come through the subconscious, and they just come through in interesting ways. And often this was interpreted or even seen or experienced by the people as being a voice or vision from a god or from their god king or from ancestors. But due to this, they were not putting themselves in this theory outside of themselves to view situations from any different angle and view themselves as a subject of their own thinking. Everything was just coming through from the right hemisphere to the left, and they would act on it. And we now have the ability to look at several things and get really, really in there with details, and the ability to separate ourselves out from an experience in our minds and plan for the future, see what we might do in the future and what we might do in the past, what we've done in the past, and kind of project in those kind of ways. When people moved out of that experience, it was like falling from grace, or the idea of Garden of Eden, where they were kicked out of the garden. And it was due to this idea of, and this is me bringing this as a comparison, the idea of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So now what good and evil was not something that was governed by this imagery flooding through. It felt like they were divorced from their gods, essentially. And so, they could envision multiple different scenarios, but who wants to do all of that? It's like being cut off from your inspiration or your intuition. And now everything just becomes logical, and it makes it more difficult in a lot of ways to harmonize with that feel of your intuition having a gauge on what's going on you know, outside of you as well, like all of the energies going on in a situation. Not to say that they were necessarily always better equipped to handle every situation, because all of that relied on what they viewed their version of God being. Clearly that was important. If the hub or center was built around a God that was just, we'll call it unrighteous, then clearly what that imagery is going to be things to propel that person to do stuff that God would have them do. So what I think, as a synthesis between those two types of thinking might be, is it seems as though now we're further swung on the extreme to the left hemisphere of the brain, where the logic occurs and all of that kind of stuff, and the rational thinking. It's like one is for cutting things up, and it also came with the I'm getting too detailed here, but that part of the development of our brains supposedly occurred along with kind of the time in history where people were more and more becoming able to read and advance in that way on a level as like the common people. There is a good thing in being able to identify yourself as an individual outside of other components, to be able to pull yourself out of the situation long enough to analyze things from a different perspective, your own. And yet at the same time, there's the need to blend in and have access to that feeling of being connected to all things, and being connected to your own inspiration or messages maybe from the self. So I guess in my mind, kind of the idea of our overcorrection to the left hemisphere extreme of being completely rational and focused on logic and all of those things. If we could blend the two and nurture that idea of the sage and the connection to the self and the will of the self, where you're tuned in to what's going on, if you could have the ability to do both things. There's the, I was looking into the different stories of Vishnu, the Hindu god of the Hindu Trinity, Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva. And one of his incarnations was into two brothers. And the brothers were, I forgot their names. Maybe I'll put some videos in the description box below. One on the mind, the bicameral mind, and one on these brothers. But the two brothers represented, one was like the humanity side, and the other was like the God side. And that was kind of the lesson. It's interesting that a god in that mythology incarnated into two people, but then they reincarnated in a new age into Krishna and another guy who had a bow and arrow. And so that happened again. I didn't realize that in any mythologies that a god would incarnate into two people at the same time. But that concept is interesting because it also brings into that idea, that right side hemisphere of the brain, where if people were before that time operating almost like in a tribal mentality where you couldn't differentiate yourself from the tribe. You were a part of that, and there wasn't the ability really at the time for people to think in those terms. What happened to the tribe happened to you, and it was just a part of how things worked. So either extreme isn't ideal, and now that we have access to eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, without access to one's gods or ancestors or this grandmother, the royal grandmother or the motherly king in Changing Line 2, that one is grieving, but then one receives a reward or gift from the motherly king. So it's kind of like that idea of inspiration coming in, and you want to be able to coordinate the two things. In Taoism, the idea of the human mentality versus the mind of Tao, or the shining mind, I wonder if that is something they were cultivating, is that going back to the state of an innocent child. In the bicameral mind, it also talks about that as children, we're still in that state, but through our parents and through language, and we are able to grow in that level of consciousness. So bringing everything kind of together, the idea of a God incarnating in two people at once, and the two people being the idea of the individual self and the God consciousness of connection to all things. If we can maintain a balance to a degree, maybe not a complete balance, maybe at times there's necessity for more of a focus on one side or the other, but to have that radar or that antenna out as to what's going on in our environment, and always with our ears open to our source consciousness, the self. Right now, it is time to move. It's obvious based on our changing lines, and normally the idea of charging ahead with your horns, it's something that it's basically kind of humiliating to do, but with the ridge pole sagging in hexagram, our supporting hexagram 28, and the idea of advancement in 35, James Dekorne calls it advancement of consciousness. It's definitely time to move, and that's the message that we're receiving from the self, so to speak, in this I Ching reading at least. We are advancing, and there's also a general consensus to do so. It's from all of the group. The group is in accord. So collective consciousness at this time, or this collective, is advancing, and maybe the rate at which one is advancing, or maybe it looks like somebody is egotistical or thinking of themselves too highly, but the point being at this moment in time is that we are advancing and receiving a gift from the motherly king, even though we've grieved of not capitalizing on every situation we could capitalize in our progress to this moment so far. Let's read some of the alchemical stuff out of Liu I-ming's Taoist I Ching. And we're just going to read the commentary sections, a brief portion of them, to get some of this alchemical flavor mixed in here. "35 advance, fire above, earth below. Light emerges over the earth, advancing. Thus do superior people by themselves illumine the quality of enlightenment. Advance is progress. Above is fire associated with the sun, and below is earth. This is the sun emerging over the earth. The sun is light. The earth is basically dark. When the light of the sun emerges over the earth, it goes from darkness to light. This is the image of advance. What superior people see in this is that just as the sun sets and also rises in the same way, people can obscure their good qualities and also can illumine them. Therefore, superior people take it upon themselves to illumine the quality of enlightenment. To illumine means to make manifest. The quality of enlightenment is the spiritual nature of innate knowledge and innate capacity that is fundamental to humankind. This nature is originally truly open, subtly existing, radiantly bright, without obscurity, but once it is mixed with acquired temperament, it goes from clarity to obscurity and loses its basic nature. But as unclarity comes from oneself, so also does clarity come from oneself. It is just a matter of whether one illumines this nature by oneself or not. If one actually knows how to illumine enlightenment, then one can illumine it. One should set right to work to cultivate it, clearing away all accumulated blockage, shed all kinds of feelings about things, and work on the ground of reality. Being careful and wary, nipping insidious inroads of conditioning in the bud, the human mentality disappears of itself and the mind of Tao manifests of itself. Temperament spontaneously sublimates and the real nature spontaneously is revealed. This then is the original open awareness without obscurity, round and bright, clean and naked, bare and untrammeled. And changing line, supporting hexagram 28. Great excess, lake above, wind below. Moisture destroys wood in excess, thus superior people stand alone without fear and leave society without distress. Great excess is excess of the great. Above is lake, associated with moisture. Below is wind, associated with wood. The nature of water is to flow downward. The nature of wood is to float upward. When water rises above wood, it can destroy wood, and when wood descends below water, it can be destroyed by the moisture. This is the image of great excess. What superior people see in this is that just as a great excess of moisture can destroy wood, so can a great excess of talent and intelligence in people destroy their character. Therefore, they take the model of water rising above wood in the sense of standing alone without fear, and take the model of wood descending below water in the sense of concealing themselves and being free from distress. Thus, they accomplish the will of a person of exceeding greatness and perfect the character of a person of exceeding greatness. Because superior people who practice the Tao consider nature and life to be the most important matter, they look down upon all existence as empty of absoluteness, being like a clear lake unsullied by the dust of objects. They make use of the phenomena of the world to practice the principles of the Tao, playing a unique tune on an individual harp. Unmoved by the prospects of life or death, they stand aloof of all things without fear. Like the flexibility of wood, they have talent, but do not presume upon it. They have intelligence, but do not rely on it. Though simple in appearance, they hold a treasure. Concealing their illumination and nurturing it in obscurity, they do not seek to be known to others. They are hidden in a profound privacy and have no distress. Having no fear means that one cannot be constrained by things. Having will and energy far beyond that of others. Having no distress means that errant thoughts do not arise, and one has cultivated development far beyond that of others. Because of having no fear and no distress, one can accomplish that which is rare in the world, and be beyond the perception and beyond the reach of ordinary people. That one flipped. 48 we shall read from the Tao Te Ching. I will be reading from 2 copies, assuming that this chapter is in the first copy. There we go. There are 5 that Benjamin Hoff does not translate because he doesn't think that Lao Tzu wrote them, so he didn't translate those 5. 48, however, is here, and he calls it decrease. To pursue study, increase every day. To follow the way, decrease every day. Decrease, then again decrease, in order to arrive at without striving. Without striving, yet without not acting. To take hold of the nation, always use without busyness. Reaching for it while holding busyness will not be sufficient. My next copy is by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. In the pursuit of learning, every day something is acquired. In the pursuit of Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less is done until non-action is achieved. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. The world is ruled by letting things take their course. It cannot be ruled by interfering.